Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Planning Committee meeting today. We have 3 applications to consider, a report on this and intend to take the business in the order they are set out on our agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we've received a couple of apologies from Councillor William Armitage, substituted by Councillor P. Ancliffe, Councillor L. Hartshorn, substituted by Councillor T. Lacey, Councillor J. Ridgway and Councillor P. Elliott. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further apologies? I don't think so.
None received.
Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are requested to declare interest already on their interest in any for a meeting at the appropriate time. Do any members have any interest to declare? Councillor Hancock?
Hi, Chair. I don't really know whether you two, but I will in case of transparency. I have made representations on 2 of those appeals, so just on item 8.
Thank you. No one else? Thank you. Item for the 2023 for them that is a correct. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion's been carried. Moving on to the main business. Before we start, I will ask the clerk to explain for the benefit of members, speakers and those watching on YouTube how we will deal with them.
Thank you, Chair. This is the procedure for considering the business this afternoon. The Chair will introduce an application and ask the planning officers to refer members to any late comments or updates received since the agenda was issued. These have been published on the Council's website and hard copies have been circulated to you. After this, the Chair will ask any speakers to address the meeting. Speakers will have 3 minutes to put forward their views. There will be a reminder given by the clerk when 30 seconds remain. At the end of the 3 minutes, members of the committee will have an opportunity to ask the speaker questions, if necessary, to clarify any points they have made. After a speaker has addressed the committee and answered any questions, then they will be allowed to remain in the meeting, but they will not be allowed to participate further from this point. The Chair will then open the meeting up for questions to officers, a debate by the committee, and finally determination on the application by a vote. The votes will be taken by roll call. Finally, members, this meeting is being live streamed and a recording will be made, which will be placed on the Council's website. Please note that others may choose to copy this recording. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to the main part of the agenda, which is item 4, which is the first application, NED/22/00391/FL at Kelstage. Alice, are you ready for the presentation? Thank you. Can I please remind members that there's plenty of time for questions after the presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the cladding of public house, a timber lean-to shelter extension, alterations to porch, 2 timber pergola seating structures, structure for a forecourt sign, trellis fencing on top of a stone wall to west boundary, extensions to the rear of the public house and the rear of Smithy Barn, a detached hobby workshop and rear 1.8 metre high close boarded fence to the northern boundary of Kelstage Inn, Matlock Road, Kelstage. This application was submitted in May last year following a period of time seeking an application for the works that had begun. Oh, that doesn't sound good, does it? Sorry. However, accurate drawings showing all the works proposed were only submitted at the beginning of January. An extension of time was originally agreed until March 2023. However, on reviewing the proposal and the recommendation for refusal, the planning manager made the decision to bring the application to this committee. This is because this allows time for members to consider the application And if members are minded to refuse the application today, officers will then have sufficient time to begin enforcement proceedings. Next slide, please. The site is located within the centre of Cowstage and is coloured orange on the attached plan. The site is within the settlement development limits of Cowstage, but it is also within the primary area of multiple environmental sensitivity and is therefore within the district's most special and protected landscape. The site is prominent and clearly visible from Matlock Road. As a consequence, the site sets the tone for the rest of Cowstage and is a building against which other development will be judged. Next slide, please. This is the red line plan for the proposal. The application site includes the Cowstage Inn and Smithy Barn. And the next one, please. This is the proposed block plan showing the timber structures to the front of the property and the proposed extensions to the rear. The existing and proposed front elevations show the extensions to the porch and the cladding on the areas to the building closest to Matlock Road. Please. Horizontal grey composite cladding has been installed on the west and north elevations of the building. Next, please. The cladding extends to the to part of the rear elevation. Single-storey extensions are proposed, which will create a large kitchen and new reception room area within the public house. 2 rooftop terraces will also serve as amenity space for Smithy Barn. Next one, please. This is the existing and proposed eastern elevation. And next, please. It's considered that the extensions to the rear are acceptable as they are below ground and well screened. They will not have a harmful impact on the character of the street scene or the amenity of neighbours. Although it should be noted that by providing capacity for more covers, the increase in the potential volume of business may have an impact on parking in the area. Next one, please. This photo taken from the north shows that the extensions are well screened due to the landfall and boundary treatments. Next, please. A number of timber structures have been constructed to the side and front of the building. They include the swing, which is shown here. The applicant states that outdoor seating was required during the COVID-19 pandemic. At that time, the government provided permitted development rights for outside structures for this purpose. However, this PD right was removed in January 2022, suggesting that the government did not intend such structures to be permanent. Their retention, therefore, needs to be regularised by planning permission. Next slide, please. Other timber structures include a seating structure, the pitched roof sign structure has also been constructed. And then the last one is a number of different boundary features have also been constructed. Notwithstanding whether the cladding is acceptable, the applicant has agreed to paint the close boarded fence to the rear of the site in a grey to match that cladding. Next slide, please. This Google Street View image from April 2019 shows the Cowstage Inn before the changes for which the applicant seeks permission were carried out. As you can see, the building was relatively simple, with outside seating to the front of the property and unimpeded car park spaces. The porch was not particularly attractive, but was relatively unassuming. Smithy Barn is the building in the foreground to the right of the picture. Next slide, please. This photo shows the front of the building now. And the next one, please. And you can see that timber structures have taken over parking spaces, reducing the space in the car park. And the next one. This again shows parking spaces being impeded. The loss of parking spaces and increase in parking requirements resulting from extra internal and external space has a harmful impact on the amenity of neighbours by extending parking onto the highway. Next slide, please. The porch has increased in size and is no longer unassuming but dominates the front of the property. Vertical timber is in contrast to the light grey horizontal composite cladding on the side of the building. Next slide, please. Horizontal grey composite cladding is not in keeping with the local stone vernacular. The light colour and synthetic appearance makes the cladding stand out, and the darker grey verge edging further emphasises this. The poor finish further detracts from its appearance in the wider street scene. The synthetic composite material is unlikely to weather. Next slide, please. These are some of the photos which were shown at yesterday's site visit. Just some more of, and then the next one. And then local and national planning policy places great weight on the importance of good design, sustainable development. Officers are of the view that whilst the rear extensions are acceptable, the cladding, porch and timber structures are not. The problem here is not necessarily individual items, but the cumulative impact of differing materials, colours and construction, which creates a cluttered appearance to the site. This is harmful because the building sets the tone for the wider character of Kelstage due to its central, prominent location and importance to the functioning of the village. No evidence has been put forward showing that the loss of the timber structures would result in the business being unviable. As such, it is considered that there are no mitigating circumstances against the harm caused by the development. As a consequence of the above, it is recommended that the proposal be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I believe we have 3 speakers for this item. Does anyone want clarification before we move to the speakers? Councillor Foster? Only for clarification at this point. Questions will be at the end. Yeah. So our first speaker this afternoon on this application is the ward member, Councillor William Armitage. William, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, off you go, 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Kelstage is a growing community with the 14 new houses which are being built, and or some of them are in the construction stage, and these are being built in the last 12 months. The pub is a necessary amenity. Not only supplies much sought after employment, which is very important to people, but it also supplies a good selection of food at a reasonable price. Much of this popularity was brought about by the refurbishment by the owner of the outside. This was a result of the cladding, which gave it a clean, modern look. The outdoor pagodas gave people the option of eating outdoors or indoors, very popular to the many walkers who get off the bus and go in for their breakfast, and then they go for a walk, come back, have their food and get back on the bus. There are all over 40 miles of footpath in the Ashover parish. The amenity value plus the employment factor far outweighs any other reasons for refusal. The cladding looks quite good. It's toned down by a lot more than when it was first put up. As for the sign, well, there's a sign higher up at the farm shop, which is bigger. So yeah, that's that. The King actually visited Ashover in 2005. It was actually Prince Charles then, and he presented it, the village with the Village of the Year award. And he spoke and he said that the pub is the heart of the community, and this pub certainly does that. And I cannot see all these reasons for turning it down when it's doing a very good job in the community. And I cannot see any reason for turning it down. When you consider the cladding, go to Mickley and look at the cladding that we put on the council houses. And so you can see that. And all the gentleman has done is make it a good, clean pub. The outward appearances. And as a result, it's brought people into the pub and made the pub.
Seconds remain.
It's made the pub more viable. And that's it. I won't say any more other than the fact that I think I should have been, my Ashover ones should have been heard when I was available. But there you go.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Armitage? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, William.
Good afternoon.
My question is, have you received any complaints yourself about this? I know it's not to do, I know the question is not about what William's been speaking about, but he is the local councillor, and if you'll allow it, Chair, I think it's relevant. Have you received any complaints yourself about this, its appearance, because it's already up? Any negative comments from residents?
None whatsoever. In actual fact, people have said what a transformation it's taken.
Thank you, Councillor Armitage. Our next speaker is Simon Oxspring. If you'd like to take the chair. You'll just need to press the red button. You'll have 3 minutes when you're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon. I've owned the Kelstitch for 23 years. We've had 8 tenants previously, and 4 years ago we took back control. We've recently spent £70,000 on refurbishments. Kelstitch is a small village, however, it's got a huge heart. Our pub is the only community facility. Our Facebook page has over 2,000 followers, and we host christenings, wakes, weddings, birthdays, WI meetings, walking groups, dog fairs, Mother's Day market, etc. Local customers drink regularly with us. They travel by foot, bike, taxi, and get dropped off. The core of our community and making everyone welcome. We employ 16 people, 7 of which are full-time, and our young staff learn important skills. Food is a huge part of our business. Without it, we wouldn't exist. We use good local suppliers. During COVID, of course, we had to close, but determined not to give up on our business, we spent the time making improvements. Customers were not allowed back inside, and we had social distancing. And from the government's advice, we created extra outside seating. It's been very difficult to keep the business going. We are starting to get back to normal, but it's a new normal. People's habits have changed. They come out earlier, they eat earlier, they don't stay out late, and quite often we're closed by 9:30. The developments enhanced our customers' offering. Some like it busy, others like it quieter atmosphere. It's not about increasing capacity, it's about creating different, more spread out areas. The outside space is very important to our customers, and we think we've made it a welcoming and safe place. Without these changes, I just don't think the business is sustainable long term. The pub was not stone on the rear and side, it was rendered. The render was very poor condition. I've repainted it 3 times. It quickly looks scruffy again because of the road. I felt it necessary to use a more sustainable finish, so we chose a good quality recycled product, which is surely better than bubbling render. I've not cladded any stonework. I think the cladding looks smart and our customers agree. I've fully cooperated with the council by employing professionals, submitting an application and making it clear that I am keen to discuss the project. I took advice and removed several of the items I'd put in front of the pub to make it look less cluttered. We are very pleased to have received many more letters of support for our application than concerns. The 3 concerns that have been received are from the same household. We've only lost 1 car parking space due to the outside seating, and we encourage our customers to park responsibly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for the speaker? If you remain where you are, just a second. Councillor Anker?
Can I ask you how many car parking spaces you have?
We have 7.
Thank you. So, and you got rid of 1, just 1 space, you're saying?
Yes.
Right. And how do you feel if people parking outside? Is that on the lane that they would park if there wasn't room within?
They park on the causeway and they also park on Ashover Road, or the road into Ashover.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My question is, we've obviously, we spoke just about the parking spaces. Can you tell me how many disabled spaces you have?
We have 1.
Just 1?
Yes.
So there's no room to put another one?
Well, we could make one of the others, but there isn't extra space to make another one.
No, I was just wondering, because obviously more and more people now have got a mobility issue. And of course, I know exactly where you are. I've visited you many times. And I'm just wondering about the mobility side, regarding if you've got more than 1 person.
I would, if I can answer that, I would say generally that car park space isn't used. It's not used on a, every daily open basis. And other people do respect the fact that it is a disabled space. And if I find somebody that's parked in it that I know the vehicle, I'd ask them to move,
Oh,
because
right.
it's, it's unfair to make sure that we can give accessibility.
Yeah.
When we first did the improvements to the pub many years ago, we formed a ramp which people can walk around. People walk around either in wheelchairs or get pushed in wheelchairs, or have walkers that they
The walking
use.
frame.
The frames, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Liggett?
Well, just to confirm, I heard right, you've lost one space.
Yes.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned. The fence that we can see, that's wooden fence going along. I think that is a bit of an eyesore. On the whole, I've driven past many times and I think it looks good. The light colour and the sign. And I've even said at the time, oh, that looks good now, you can notice it really well. Is there any way that you could put some plants in front of that stuff just to soften it up and make it more?
Sorry, are you talking about the fence at the rear of the?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one elevation which goes on to the flats, it'd be difficult for me to do anything there because it's not my land. It's on
No,
my
but the
boundary.
bit that comes onto a green that goes onto the main road.
Yes, we could put some planters on there, but that would then be coming onto the pathway. So I don't know how that would be viewed
I
as
was just
an
thinking of
obstruction.
screening it up a bit.
Yeah, well, we have also agreed that, if it needs to be painted, we would tone it down with painting to the same colour as we can get a RAL number for the paint colour for the cladding, and we'll paint that, and I've already agreed to do that. I haven't done it because obviously I'm waiting to see what the outcome of this is.
No, thank you.
I do have a question for you, and I'm a bit concerned. All this work has gone on without any form of planning permission.
Right.
Did you actually have a lot of input from the planning officers, or did you start the work without permission? Well, obviously they've started the work without permission.
I did, but if I'm totally, and I am on being honest as well, I seriously didn't realise that to put the cladding on or the fencing or change the front of put in the roof on the porch, that I would really need planning permission. So I was ignorant of that, and that was wrong. Yes, we did start work in the back of the building on the site, and we have done a fair amount of work. The moment the council came and told to see me about it, I've stopped work and I haven't done anything since then. So yes, I was wrong. I didn't get planning permission to start with, but I have complied with the request of the council not to do any further work.
Thank you for your honesty. Thank you. Any further questions? No. If you'd like to take your seat.
Thank you.
And the last speaker, Charlotte Stainton. Charlotte, you know the drill.
Thank you. Simon has apologised for starting the work before checking with the council. He thought he was doing the right thing, preparing for reopening after the long and difficult COVID closure. Government had issued advice to create outside areas. The committee report confirms that the rear extensions are acceptable. The concerns raised by the officers relate to the cladding, porch, fencing and timber structures. However, I have an email here from the original case officer dated the 6th of June 22, which confirms that the cladding, porch and sign structure were all acceptable. All subsequent negotiations with the council were carried out on this basis, and we were even told to match various elements of the cladding, like the paint on the fence. Last week, when the committee report was published, this was the first time we had any idea that these elements were no longer agreed. This is completely unreasonable to Simon. The council had agreed an extension of time until the end of March to enable negotiations. In the email from Emily, it is stated that the removal of the cladding would actually be harmful to the appearance. At 7.14, you are advised that the cladding is not in keeping with the stone vernacular But these elevations of the pub were not stone, they were bubbling painted render. Your officer report advises you at 7.5 that the principle of development in the village is acceptable. You are required to make a judgment about the design and to balance any issues with the benefits to the community facility. The report raises various issues about colour or finish or screening of elements, which could simply have been discussed with us. The painting of the fence, for example, will be completed if permission is granted. We welcome that there are no objections from any of the statutory consultees, including environmental health. Comments have been made about loss of parking, but only one parking space has been lost. There are no parking standards in the local plan, and this is a local facility where many people walk. The Highway Authority has not objected. The officer has confirmed that the issue about parking impacting on neighbour amenity was based on objections from one household. We understand that occasionally people may park irresponsibly, and this could cause inconvenience for a short time. But is this really a major amenity issue that means planning permission should be refused? I'm not aware of a street parking amenity issue for one house ever being a reason for refusal before. If Simon put movable tables and chairs or other structures in the car park, this would not require planning permission. The structures have been fixed for safety and security. You've heard from Simon what an important community facility this is. We all know many pubs that have been lost. We ask you please to place significant weight on the importance of supporting this local pub in making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just have some clarification, Charlotte? And I could have asked Simon, I'm sorry, I just looked at this picture. Leading into the porch, there's 2 steps. Is there another disabled access point? There is?
Yes, so
thank you.
Yes, at the side.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. That letter that you held up, give me permission. Could you expand on that a little, please? It's okay to quote it, but could you read out a little about what it says? I haven't heard that letter. Is that okay, Chair? Thank you.
Sure. It's Emily Cartwright was the case officer before she left the council. This is an email from the 6th of June 22, giving feedback on the planning application that I'd submitted the month before. What she's done is she's provided a series of headings as she goes through each of the elements of the scheme. So, for example, extension to the rear of the public house, and then a paragraph on each. So, extension to the rear of the public house, the 2 extensions are deemed to be acceptable. I'm summarising what's on this email. Extension to Smithy Barn and Workshop, the proposed extensions are deemed to be acceptable. Porch alterations. The timber awning support, new pitched roof, grey timber cladding alterations are considered to be acceptable. Cladding to public house. Whilst the composite grey finish cladding is not necessarily considered to complement the design of the development, we have taken a balanced view, on a balanced view, it has been taken that it is acceptable because to remove the cladding would be more detrimental to the appearance of the public house. Sign structure. The existing sign surrounding timber and slate roof structure is considered to be acceptable. Timber lean-to, shelter extension, timber pergola and the swing structure. The concerns were raised about these elements and we were asked to look at the siting form, massing and design. We'd reduced the clutter and we looked at the materials and offered to make any amendments that they wished us to make in that respect. They said that at the present time, these were not considered to be acceptable. So that was in June. The 1.8 metre shiplap fencing to the north and east boundaries are considered to be acceptable. Please consider a colour similar to the cladding. So we did that. The trellis fencing along the west boundary is not considered to be acceptable. They asked for more information on levels, which we provided, and they confirmed were acceptable. They asked us about the solar panels, which are confirmed were permitted development. And they asked us for more information about the parking, and the Highway Authority raised no objection. So at this point, in June 22, everything was acceptable, apart from the lean-to timber extension, which has since been clad to match the pub on the left-hand side of the pub, and the timber pergola and the swing. Everything else was confirmed as okay. So as far as we were concerned, we were just working on those elements.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you.
All right, we now come to the interesting part. Questions to the officers. Any questions? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. My question is, when we look at the recommendation at the end and how it's worded, and what we've heard from the officer, and it's about the reasons why it's been refused. So we can see the first two parts, and the third part is around the loss of parking. So it's a major part of the reason why the recommendation is to refuse. So we've got the loss of parking spaces and increase in parking requirements resulting in extra internal and external space as a harmful impact on the immunity of neighbours. And it says here, has a harmful impact. So I'd like to question how this has been put across. When the officer described it, the lady said may have a harmful impact. For me, it's a small point, but we've got to be careful about things like this when it's something so important as supporting a business. So does it have an harmful impact in the officer's view, this loss of space, or it may have an harmful impact? And it's important to me because a lot of this hinges around, for me, this parking space. So perhaps an explanation on that. It may have a harmful impact, or does it?
I can start, Chair, and Alice can add something if that'd help. The fundamental issue for members, as with all these things, is it's a matter for your judgment, and you will need to take a view on whether the impact on the parking, and you've heard from both the applicant and officers our views on that. You'll need to take a view whether the displacement of that parking, whether it be 1 space, 2 spaces, 3 spaces, whatever you judge is the appropriate level, from your understanding of what you've heard, whether that has a knock-on impact then on parking being displaced onto the highway and the consequent impact on the amenity of the neighbours. And the judgment that we have come to as officers is that level of displacement does have that harmful impact. But I think that the nub of it for me, as Councillor Foster started, Chair, was it's an amalgam of all these various issues. And you've heard again this afternoon, Ms Stainton quoted you an email that we put together back in June, but it's an amalgam of all those elements rather than one individual element that goes together to lead to our conclusions on the acceptability of the scheme. So hopefully that helps on the parking issue anyway, but ultimately it would be a matter for yourselves as a planning committee to take a view on that point.
If we may come back, Chair, I appreciate the explanation, and thank you for that, Adrian. I think I was concerned more that how it was introduced, that it may have an harmful impact. It was that statement, because I know it's not written down, but what's written down is it will, and it may, and there's a difference to me.
Yes, it's our judgment that it would, but you as planning committee will need to take a view on that as the application as a whole, obviously, as you would.
Councillor Hancock?
Thank you, Chair. It's kind of the obvious question, really, is why is there such a disparity between what was said 8 months ago and what's being said today?
I think the issue, as we just discussed with Councillor Foster, is an amalgam of those elements, and the officer back in June took a view on that. I've had to review the whole application before bringing it to you this afternoon, and it's the retention of all those various elements that together, in the opinion of officers, leads us to our conclusion. Irrespective of what was said in June and what's said now, it's still the decision that you have to take. So you as a planning committee will need to take a view on whether the cladding is acceptable, whether the ancillary structures in the car parking is acceptable. So fundamentally, you've heard what's been said, but you will still need to take a judgment on that, irrespective of what was said in June and what's put in our officer report now. So the issue before you remains the same.
I think what I'm kind of getting at, there's obviously, typically when it comes to looking at planning applications and refusing planning applications, we should be doing it on technical reasons and objectively. This is obviously saying there's a lot of subjectivity here because we've had 2 officers have very different opinions on identical situations. And I think that's my concern. We're getting what was clearly Emily's opinion when she was here. The opinion now is different, but nothing's actually changed. things have actually been taken away, which would address that. So there seems to be a little bit too much subjectivity here rather than the objectivity we would normally have.
With respect, Chair, I disagree with that. The fundamental issue for members this afternoon remains the same, irrespective of what officers said, because we bring to you a recommendation and sometimes you accord with that and sometimes you don't. You need to bring your own judgment to the application, irrespective of what was said in June, what's said now. So I note what Councillor Hancock says about the officer view changing over time, but fundamentally the issue still remains for you as planning committee to take a view on the application, and I'm sure you'll do that based on the information that you have, and you'll need to assess the application based on your planning policies in respect to the design of new development, which is fundamentally the issue for officers here. Is the cladding and the refurbishment of the pub as a whole acceptable, bearing in mind that it includes both alterations to the building and the structures that are placed within the car parking area? So that fundamentally still remains the same.
Any other comments, questions to officers? Councillor Anthony?
I'd just like to say something. I find it extremely difficult sat here and looking at what's in front of me and then hearing that in actual fact it was okay. Sorry. That I find it extremely difficult that, you know, sort of so many months back, it sort of was looked as though it was okay. But now it isn't. There's indeed an awful lot of money that's obviously been spent. And I find it quite a difficult situation to weigh up one way or the other. For one, I don't like cladding, but at the same time, I realise that there's the gentleman probably went along with what he thought would be acceptable. I find that extremely hard.
Can we just clear up? The applicant and the agent are saying there was one parking space is lost, and in the recommendation to refuel it says a lack of parking spaces, plural.
Parking. I made a judgment of what were parking spaces in the looking at historic aerial photographs. I think looking at it, I think there were probably 8, and we would argue there are now 6. But I do recognise that there appear to be cars parked underneath the one of the timber pergolas. So I guess to make a judgment as to whether that's still a parking space or not still a parking space. If it is, then it's loss of 1 space, but if it isn't, then it's a loss of 2, I would say, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Chair. It's a similar vein, really. I'm looking at the picture on page 17 of the car under the pergola. If a car's parked under there, how much use is that pergola to the pub? That's my first point. I don't know if I've ever used this car park, and it's probably a question to either the agent or the applicant. But it looks very tight in there, and there looks like obviously there's a swing. I can see a bench. There's that. How difficult, in the officer's opinion, is it to manoeuvre in that car park to get in and to get out safely, and also to ensure public safety within that car park?
The car park isn't huge, but I think there's adequate space to get in and out. Yeah, I think that was probably all right.
I've used the car park and it's not massive, but you can manoeuvre safely. But that was before the swing, etc., was put in there. My concern would be children running about in there and not being supervised. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, taking a balanced view on this, the thing for me is definitely about what's actually in the car park at this moment, not the view of the building. I've driven past it many times, and yeah, it may not be to everybody's liking, but it's without a shadow of a doubt, it's certainly smartened that pub up, and it looks like it's a pub, and it's like a part of a community, and it's obviously well used. The thing that really concerns me is what's going off in that car park.
Yes, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but the swing, there's a sign, and then the swing, and then the pagoda, which has got the car parked underneath it at the minute. And then there's more timber structures over where the seating used to be before. If you go to the previous picture, though, you can see there was always seating outside, but it was just benches on that piece of gravel area.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. But I understand the questions about what's going on in the car park, and I understand why members are asking about them, which you've just said concern over what's going on in the car park. But when we read the summary and conclusion, this is not something which has been involved in the reasons for recommending refusal. We can see through them all at the bottom of page 22 through to the bottom of page 23. The recommendations for refusal were different to that. They're based on the policies SS7, SDC 3. It doesn't mention what's going on in the car park. So I think we have to be careful as a committee, you know, when we come to making a decision, that we are considering the right policies rather than just saying what's going on in the car park. That is, you know, that shouldn't be affecting our decision. With respect, Chair.
And I take your point, but my concern is safety of anyone using that car park, regarding of what planning policy it is. And I think that's something we should all be concerned about. Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. It's a question for officers in terms of what options are available to us, because I think from what I'm hearing, I think other people have kind of got the same thing going through their head as I have. I think in principle, a lot of us don't have an issue with what's being done, but we do have concerns with those car park, the pergola and what's around it. So what kind of, if and when we come to making motions, what kind of options are in front of us if we want to reject officers' recommendations, but kind of keep that area as something that needs further discussion?
We did give this some thought, Chair, about potential what we would call the split decision, and you could take a split decision on the application if there was one element of it that was clearly distinguishable from the larger part. So it couldn't be the larger bit that you didn't like and you were approving a little bit. If you understand it, you would need to have objection to a smaller bit. So, and hopefully this helps, Councillor Hancock, but in this instance, you may, and Lisa will correct me if I'm wrong legally on this, I'm sure, but you could take a decision to approve the vast majority of what's proposed, so the cladding, the porch, the other extensions that haven't been completed to the rear of the building, the fence, etc., subject to condition, but by condition specifically exclude retrospective permission for structures within the car park, for example, or certain parts of the car park. If you could split that off, and it does stand, to my mind, clearly distinguishable from much of the rest of the scheme, if that was an area that the planning committee were particularly concerned about and didn't find acceptable for whatever reason. And there's been discussion about the movements within the car park and the use of those facilities. That's, as Councillor Foster says, that wasn't the conclusion we came to as officers, bearing in mind the comments from the Highway Authority on the highway safety element, if you like. But you could, if you chose, differentiate, say, the pergola and the swing from everything else to retain those car parking spaces and, in effect, refuse them by limiting condition. The other alternative you have, of course, is to refuse the application as a whole or to approve it as a whole. So you've got those, I think you've got those three options. I think that sounds right.
Councillor Liggett?
I know what Councillor Foster was saying about the car park shouldn't really be an issue, but I was just thinking there are 3 pubs in Ashover, literally half a mile down the road, one of which doesn't have any car park, and the other one has a much more dangerous car park than this one. That's just my opinion. But there you go. And I think in a village pub, they're lucky to have a car park at all.
Councillor Hall?
Thank you. Yeah, what for the officers, please. One of the comments, 9.2 for refusal, is the cladding. So whilst it looks nice, it does remind me of something you'd see more at the seaside than in Ashover. But one of the things that would concern me is it's there already and it's up. So when you say about dividing it into different points or sections, say if we were minded, say, to refuse that, the issue then would be to get it removed. But would there be a better option, or what would you rather there be, in a way? I don't know, stone or what there was there before, I'm not sure. For us, the option is, if we're reminded to vote for it, to keep it, or if we get it removed, then is there a photo of what there was before? I don't know, please.
It was the side and rear elevations that have now been clad were rendered, painted render. Yep. And there are photos on Google Street View.
Okay, just to come back, please. So just to, like, some of it, like that photo shows some stone, isn't it? Yeah. So all, just to clarify, is that correct?
Yeah, the front elevation was stone, the side, and I think part or all of the rear, I'd have to check that, was rendered.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no more questions for officers, I'll open the floor for debate. Oh, Councillor Liggett.
Yeah, I was just going to say about architectural merit and cladding versus render. I know what the pub used to look like, and it looked dirty, I'll be perfectly honest with you. And I don't really think there's any architectural merit in grey render, you know. But also, Kelstage it's not a picture postcard village. I'm not going to offend you, I hope. It's a very, very mixed village. It has all sorts of architecture, ages, etc., including, I think, the 14 new houses that William mentioned. I hope I'm referring to the same ones. A little new development on the right-hand side heading back into Ashover, the last houses in Kelstage. In my opinion, how they were ever passed is beyond me, because in my opinion, they are very, very 1960s in style. Very flat roofs, big garages at the front, etc. So personally, I don't think you can't really have a go about the cladding, because obviously that side of the pub must have been severely damaged to get it rendered in the first place. I know people that have had render removed, and the stone is usually in such a diabolical condition underneath, you can't sort of remove it and hope to get stone back. So I can understand why they've done that. I did think it was a little odd until I saw what was there before. So, thank you.
Okay, the floor is still open for debate. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to speak about is supporting businesses. We often speak about it as a council, and as individual councillors. But when you look at what support businesses actually do want, they want they want to be allowed to do business. And they're the experts when it comes to making money, employing people and paying taxes and keeping our country running. We've got an idea as councillors, and some councillors are business owners, but we should believe in that we should be supporting businesses. They've been through a very difficult time. A lot of people are forgetting that COVID's only for business owners, only a short time away, where they're only just getting back on the feet. Here we've got a business owner that's invested heavily in the community and being honest with us. I accept what's being said about starting the work without the permission, but I can see the sort of work that was done. Someone not that up on planning permission might well have started. And I take the gentleman's word on that. And then he's worked with us. He's had, from that letter that's being led out, he's been led to believe that what he's doing is acceptable. So you can see he's worked with the council. So for me, I like the idea of being able to support businesses, and I think that's what we should be doing. That's just on the business side of things. On the other side of things, one we've not spoke about, and I've only just touched on it, when you look at the reasons for refusing, which is SS7, STC3 and STC12, and we're talking about the car park, I think we've got to be careful when it comes to, if we do refuse this and we do put things in about that haven't been considered and given advice from officers before, so we haven't had that advice. If we put things in here about that car park, there's no reason to say why that can't be taken to appeal, and it can't be dealt with differently, because we can't just invent things and invent our own concerns. We might have got concerns about car parks, but without policy to back it up, that's not going to stand up at appeal. It's not going to be a sound judgment which will stand up at an appeal. I'd be more than happy to hear from officers on their view. I know it's a debate part, but I'm more than happy to hear officers' view on that. For me, if it's not in there already and we don't back it up by policy, it can be quite easily taken to appeal. So we've got to make sound decisions. We've got to make defensible decisions when it comes to it. So just 2 points I wanted to make. One is about supporting businesses, and the other one is about being careful, making judgments and how it stands up at appeal. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. I think, I mean, one of the key things here, I won't say I'm a frequent visitor there because I'm certainly not, but they have actually improved this pub enormously. It looks a lot better than it did previously. And I think that's one of the key considerations we've got. Totally get where Mark's coming from on that last comment. I think one of the key bits here, and it is a key criticism, and I think Alice actually touched on it when she was doing her initial presentation. The guidance from the government over the COVID stuff and the permitted development rights there was woolly. And I think the gist that we had from the email that Charlotte read out, everything was working fine, but they wanted further discussion on that bit about the pergola and the swings, etc. Personally, I would be more comfortable if those discussions were still kept open, because I do think they do need a bit more discussion. But yeah, that we haven't got anything substantive to grasp hold of, and it is on dodgy ground, and it potentially could become a test case because of that lack of guidance from the government, which is a fault of theirs. But yeah, I mean, the key thing is they have invested as a business, but they've made it look better. And that's top and bottom of it. So I think it would be stupid to turn it down, if I'm honest.
Any other comment? No, I'll go to the motion stage. Does anyone want to put Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make one that we give planning permission for this as it stands, based on these reasons. And I based them on the recommendations in the middle of page 23, quoting policies SS7, SDC3 and SDC12, all of the local plan. SS7, that it is appropriate in scale, design and location to the character and function of the settlement. SDC3, that it does not cause significant harm to the character, quality, distinctiveness or sensitivity of the landscape. Both of those were discussed, all of us, when it came to the planning, what it looks like. And SDC12, that it does respond positively to the local character and context to preserve the local identity. So I'm happy to propose that as it stands and quote those three policies. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Chair. I second Councillor Foster's proposal that we reject officers' recommendations on this.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote.
Just briefly, Chair, just to come in before you take the vote. Just in terms of the motion, I understand the motion. Just wondered if members are concerned about any particular issue and whether you want any matter controlled by condition. And I particularly note the comments of the Highway Authority on page 11 and also those of the Environmental Health Officer on page 11 regarding travel plan and the hours of work during any subsequent development. And there is further work, I understand, that would need to be taking place on the site. And just ask members if they've got any conditions in mind or whether you're content. And that's the only issue of clarity, just asking for the votes taken, Chair.
Through the chair, can I ask what the recommendation would be from officers?
My view would be it would be appropriate to put a condition on restricting the times when the work could take place on any subsequent building works, because it is in close proximity to flats and other residential properties. In this instance, in view of the proximity of bus route or a bus routes, I think I personally don't think a travel plan would be something you would need to place on any approval to make the development acceptable. I think there's perfectly adequate opportunities for people to travel here. You talked about people travelling to walk, using public transport, etc. So I don't think you would need that. In terms of other conditions, I can't think of any. In view of the works having started and those that are impacting on the front of the property, I don't think I would recommend any other conditions because the work's already started. So that's my recommendation would be you would normally want to control the times when the works could take place to those that wouldn't affect the near neighbours.
And what would be the recommended, through the chair, what would be the recommended times?
The Environmental Health Office has recommended between 8 and 6 Monday to Friday, and on Saturday mornings from 9 till 13, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We would normally put a condition restricting it to 8 o'clock on the Saturday morning to 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I can go along with that. Councillor Hall?
Yeah, sorry, just before we go to the vote, on page 18, 7.18, you have stated about the fencing, unpainted timber fencing introduces another mixture to the material on site, adding to the impression of clutter. So is that a condition you would like adding or anything? What would you like to be seen there, really?
I was going to say, Roger, I believe the applicant has already agreed that he would paint the fence so it's toned down to match in with the rest of the cladding.
Does that need to be added as a condition though? That's what I'm
No,
saying.
it's already agreed to it.
If members are minded to approve the application, we would normally put on an approved plans condition and it's shown on there. So it would be part and parcel of that, unless members wanted to leave the fence and the colouring to the owner.
Councillor Foster?
Move to the vote, Chair.
Okay, Chair, I think we're clear on the motion. Councillor Ancliffe? Councillor Cooper? Councillor Foster?
For.
Councillor Hall?
For.
Councillor Hancock?
For.
Councillor Lacey?
For.
Councillor Liggett?
For.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor Powell? Councillor Rouse?
For.
And Councillor Rough.
For.
Unanimous, Chair, the motion has passed. Thank you.
We'll move on to the second application for this afternoon, and that is NED/22/01164/FL at Ashover. When you're ready, Alice.
let Ed catch up with, oh, hang on. You there? It's stuck.
That's me.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. This application is for the conversion and extension of an existing barn to form a single residential dwelling and direction of a new storage barn. It's a revised scheme of 2100713 FL at Alice Head Farm, Alice Head Road, Ashover. And the application, the application is a resubmission of a scheme submitted in 2021, which allowed the conversion, but with a smaller extension. The site is located to the north of Alice Head Road and is outlined here in orange. The barn is part of Alice Head Farm farmstead and forms the northeastern side of the farmyard. The site is located within the primary area of multiple environmental sensitivity and therefore in the district's most special and protected landscape. This is the block plan which shows the barn proposed for the conversion and the location of the new storage building in the eastern corner of the proposed garden. It is considered that as a consequence of the need for this storage building, the conversion would result in the replacement of an agricultural building, which is against the requirements of criterion F of policy SDC1. Next slide, please. The application is for the conversion of a building, including the conversion of an extension of a modern extension to the rear of the property. However, this modern extension has been demolished, so the proposal has been considered as a conversion of the traditional barn with the extension to the rear as a new development. Slide, please. This photo shows that the modern rear extension has been demolished. Next slide, please. The applicant has a permission to convert the building, which includes a small extension. These are the approved drawings. You can see it's quite small. These are the plans and elevation drawings for the storage building. Although it is proposed to be constructed of timber boarding on a stone plinth, the proposed storage building appears industrial, being completely enclosed with one full height door. In this area, truly agricultural buildings tend to be open at least on one side, providing ventilation and access to livestock, etc.
That's for a livestock building.
Going back to the barn conversion, it is considered that the traditional element of the building is of permanent and substantial construction and therefore capable of conversion. It is considered that this element of the proposal is acceptable, and indeed the applicants have a permission to convert the building with the small extension approved to the rear. However, clearly, the previous existing large utilitarian rear element is not capable of conversion as it no longer exists. As such, the rear element has to be considered as a new extension to the traditional barn. The proposed extension will represent a 60% increase in the size of the building, and as such, it is considered to be a major extension which fails to meet the requirements of criterion B of policy SDC1. Next slide. The building and extension are clearly visible from the footpath to the rear of the property. Sorry. And here is another view from the footpath. The extension would be visible with some vegetation screening from Alice Head Road. The storage building proposed to the garden area would be clearly visible, and it is considered would not be informed by or sympathetic to the valued landscape, as it is industrial rather than agricultural in style, and will be read as a modern building separate from the existing built form. And the last one. The proposal fails to meet the requirements of conversion policy due to the scale of the extension proposed and the need for a new storage building. As it is clearly visible from public viewpoints and no details of materials for the extension have been submitted, officers are of the view that there are no material considerations to outweigh the harm to the landscape. It is therefore recommended that the application be refused.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
I believe we have one speaker for this application, Councillor Armitage. Are you there, William?
Yeah, if I can start the video. It's been, the host has disabled it, so can you put it on, Owen?
We can hear you.
I know that, Roger. The host has asked you to.
Camera, if there's a line on it.
Okay, there we are. Right, off we go.
3 minutes when you're ready.
Thank you. Right, there's an obvious need for this barn and the remains of the cowshed to be converted into a home. At the moment, there is a family of 5 living in a caravan, and as far as I'm concerned, this is not acceptable because there is a barn on site which would make a house for them. 7.4 on your documents points out that local and neighbourhood plans support the principle of conversion of a barn to a dwelling. Policy SDC1 supports this, and it was approved item, it was 21/00713/FL. The proposed extension replaces an old disused cowshed. They took it down because it was falling down. It wasn't a modern building at all. And there is a great concrete slab so to prove the point that it's there. You've now said that it shouldn't be allowed because it's an incursion into the countryside as a new build. Well, it wasn't. It was taken down because it wasn't safe, and it wasn't a modern building in any case because cows were never housed in cowsheds. Well, it was up until after the war. We then go to the argument about the building down the yard there. The officer has stated that it's not an agricultural building. It's not an agricultural building which is used for livestock. We accept that. But with the amount of theft that's going on farms and roundabout, we have to have secure storage. And that's what the building is designed for, secure storage. And it is needed. And I look at it like this. This plan should be allowed. It's not necessarily into the actual countryside, an incursion, because it was
30 seconds remain.
So there you are. There is a need, and a family is living in a caravan, and it's disgusting.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any questions for Councillor Liggett?
Just for clarification, William, because I honestly don't know the answer to this one. Are they actually farming the land, or did they just buy the house and surround?
I think they're to do with the farm, quite frankly. I know the lady is.
Right, okay.
Any other questions? No, thank you, William.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for the officers? Councillor Rouse?
Thank you. All I need to ask, they say that they actually live on the land in the caravan. Has there been any permission given for that caravan to be on site?
I don't believe so, no.
Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. My question for officers is around 8.2 summary and conclusion. It's about the unsafe, what was called an unsafe, is it the lean-to, which was demolished, and it can no longer be considered as a conversion and must be assessed as a new extension. I gather, though, that the base is still there. Is that correct? So just some clarity on that, please.
Yes, the base is there, but the rest of the building isn't there, and therefore is not a building that can't be converted because it doesn't exist. The policy is very clear that buildings have to be capable of conversion to meet the conversion policy, or if they're to be extended, it mustn't be major extensions.
So on that, Chair, just because you've said that our local policies are very clear, just whereabouts, so while this meeting's going on, can I just look it up, that policy, which policy it is?
It's policy SDC 1 of the local plan.
Is that the SDC 1F that you spoke about?
No, have we got it there?
It's on page 123 of the local plan.
Yeah, I've got that.
And there are A to G at the various strands of it. And as officers, we've gone through the various strands in our report and the elements that we are. There were two elements to the barn. There's the stone barn that you've seen on the photographs, which we accept is of permanent substantial construction. We accept that could be converted. However, and you've heard Councillor Armitage say that the other part of the building that was there fell down. So that's now gone. So from the point of view of your policy, is that element of the building should have been capable of conversion to achieve the policy stance. And Councillor Armitage says it was in a poor state and fell down. So in an officer view, we would concur with that part of the building wasn't capable of conversion. And so we're taking the policy on its face that the conversion of the building should be capable of taking place without major alteration, adaptation or reconstruction. And our view is that because that part of the building was in a poor state, it doesn't meet that criterion of the policy. So we've disaggregated the two. We accept that the stone barn has merit and could be converted. And indeed, we've granted permission, as you heard Alice say, for its conversion with a much smaller extension previously. But our view is that the size of the extension now proposed to, in effect, cover that footprint of the previous building is too significant in size and therefore doesn't meet the criterion of policy SDC 1. And that's on the basis of our recommendation to you.
Councillor Liggett?
Yeah, just a question. Is that correct then that an agricultural barn, when it's got a roller shutter door on, becomes an industrial building?
Alice will correct me if I'm wrong here, but in this instance, it's being constructed as part and parcel of this application to provide for storage. Don't believe we've any evidence or information that it's to be used specifically for agriculture. If it were for agriculture, then it would be applied for as an agricultural building. But again, in the discussion I've just had with Councillor Foster, strand F of your policy SDC 1 talks about the new use resulting in replacement farm buildings or inappropriate outside storage, etc. And that adds weight to your officer view that the proposal, by the removal of that element of the building that fell down, but also by the conversion of the building, which could be used for storage or other uses, will lead to the creation of this other building within the garden of the new dwelling that would be provided. So that adds weight to our conclusion in terms of the overall merits of the conversion extension.
Any other points to officers? Councillor Hall?
Yeah, thank you. We've heard about Councillor Armitage talking about 5 people living in a caravan, but I guess that's on the site, the caravan on the site, but I guess that's not something relevant to the actual planning application, is it?
And you've heard me say this to planning committee many times, but you need to take your decisions in accordance with your development plan, first and foremost, unless other matters outweigh that conclusion. So the discussion that Councillor Foster and I have just had relates to policy SDC 1, part of your development plan. You need to weigh that up with the other relevant elements of the development plan, if you think there are any, and then make a conclusion on that point. Does it accord with your development plan or not? Bearing in mind that conclusion, other than any other matters so weighty that outweigh that initial consideration. And our view as officers is that the policies of your development plan are so clear in this circumstance that any other matters don't outweigh that. And there are clearly other options open to the family in any case, because as you've heard, we have granted permission for the conversion of the building, but with a much smaller extension than that now proposed. And there are other alternatives as well. And we've not in any way sought to lead to this conclusion, this situation where they're in a caravan. But there are, I believe, at least one other family living within the farmhouse on the site. So there is other residential occupations there as well. So the view of officers is that there aren't any other matters that outweigh that initial consideration on the merits of your development plan. Hopefully that answers the question. I hope so, Chair.
Any other points to the officers? No, in which case I'll open the floor for debate. Councillor Hall.
Thank you. I think to make sure that we don't set a precedent or anything, and from what we've heard from the officers, I propose that we go with officers' recommendation.
This is, you can't do the motion just yet, Roger. Councillor Hancock.
Sorry, Chair, apologies. Yeah, I think this is one of those awful situations where your heart says one thing and your brain says another. It is. I mean, I think if they actually separated the two applications and we were looking at the domestic bit and then the storage, I think it might be a little bit easier, but it goes against policy SDC 1 if we were to approve it, and I don't see any way around that. So whilst my heart goes out to them and says, yes, they really need a nice house, they have got that fallback position, and I can't see that approving this will be consistent with where we stand.
Any other comment? No. Councillor Hall, would you like to put your motion forward?
Yeah, please. I'd like to propose that we go with officers' recommendation to refuse the application, please.
Thank you. I will second it.
Right then, Chair. Motion is to approve officer recommendations. Councillor Ancliffe. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Foster. Councillor Hall. For. Councillor Hancock. For. Councillor Lacey. For. Councillor Liggett.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Powell. Councillor Rouse. And Councillor Rough. Motion has been approved, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. And the final application for today is NED/22/00391/FL Brackenfield. Your last one, Alice. Deep breath.
Just waiting for the computer to catch up. Sorry, we'll just be 2 minutes. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Thanks, Chair. This application is for the conversion of a barn to a dwelling at Moor Grange, Dohole Lane, Brackenfield. This is a revised scheme of 22-00504, which was refused last year on design grounds and because the applicant also proposed a number of new agricultural buildings. It was considered that because of this, the proposal did not meet the conversions policy. The application site is located to the north of Dohole Lane. It is a barn or former equestrian building to the northeast of the dwelling known as Moor Grange. This is the red line location plan. You can see the applicant has included the surrounding land in the blue line. This block plan shows that the barn and proposed garden area to the north. This block plan shows the barn and the proposed garden area to the north. Parking will be to the front. This is the existing and proposed south and west elevations. You can see that with the exception of new roof lights, existing openings will be used. These are the existing and proposed north and east elevations. 2 new openings are proposed on the rear north elevation, along with 2 new roof lights. It is considered that the design is in keeping with its surroundings and the character of the building and its setting. Next slide, please. This is a photograph of the existing south elevation. It is considered that the building is of permanent and substantial construction and is capable of conversion. It's therefore considered that by virtue of this design and the design, the proposal meets the conversion policy. This shows the east and north elevations. And this is the north or rear elevation. The site is visible from the open access land to the north, but as you can see, the building itself is well screened by mature trees. The building is also visible from the footpath to the east. These are photos of the building from the fields closer to the site. It's the top one on the right. And that's just another photograph of the building. And finally, from Dewey Lane to the south, the building is obscured by trees. It's considered that as a consequence of this design and the fact that it's not very easily visible from publicly accessible viewpoints, the conversion meets the requirements of the conversion policy SDC1, and therefore it is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have our speaker, Councillor Armitage. When you're ready, William.
Yeah, I didn't realise I was speaking on this, but I will soon. I'm here. I don't have any qualms with this at all. I think the officers have made the right decision on it. That's all I wish to say.
Thank you. We're all going to sit down in shock. Thanks very much. Are there any questions for Councillor Armitage? Councillor Hall?
Sorry to, yeah, page 39, 1.1, the application has been called into committee by Councillor Armitage. Reason,
yeah, I did.
Impact on the landscape and massing. But
Yeah.
do you not have any concerns then, you know?
No, no, it's been altered. Well, you will see that from your notes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Councillor Armitage? Okay, any questions for officers then? No? I'll open the floor for debate, or we can move straight to motions. I can see everybody looking. No debate? Oh, Councillor Powell?
There was no debate. I'll move we follow the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a vote on that now, please.
Councillor Ancliffe, Councillor Cooper, Councillor Foster, Councillor Hall,
For.
Councillor Hancock,
For.
Councillor Lacey,
For.
Councillor Liggett,
For.
Councillor Jones,
For.
Councillor Powell, Councillor Rouse, and Councillor Ruff. That's unanimous, Chair. The motion has passed. Thank you.
Moving on to item 8, planning appeals and lodged and determined.
Members will see, Chair, that there's only the one appeal that's reported this month, and that's the enforcement appeal at page 53. You may recall our colleague Julian coming to speech about various matters previously, and this appeal is one of those that was raised at that discussion. And just to commend Julian on the work that he put into this and the outcome, which is a very good decision for the council in terms of unauthorised works within the green belt. It was a public inquiry. He put an awful lot of time and effort into the appeal with colleagues. Grateful to him for that, and it is a very good decision for the council. And I do commend it to members to give that a good read when it came through. And if you didn't, if you can spend 15 minutes having a look at it, I think it does raise a number of issues, but not least the important arguments around development in the green belt, which it goes through in quite good detail, well argued and well thought through. So just commend that to members, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to pass on my thanks to Julian, did a sterling job on that. Thank you. Well, I have no urgent business, so good afternoon to you all. Thank you for your time.